Okay, hi. So we're going to introduce you the Hermine project. So first question is why? Why a new tool in the ecosystem? So a little bit of context. So FOSS is everywhere. That's, don't need to say much more about that. But the thing is, so compliance also needs to be taken to scale. And there is a problem with lawyers. You might be aware of that. There's not enough of them. And they're too expensive as well. And so all lawyers need to address compliance topics, not just FOSS specialized lawyers, right? The other piece of context is that all organizations have the same problems, and it's really hard to share those problems and find common solution for compliance topic. Right, so today, there's an ecosystem, there's plenty of tools, and as we've just been saying before, we rely heavily on SBOMs, and there's plenty of tools that produce SBOMs of various quality. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good, and most of it, they're not in the same formats, and they don't share exactly what Anthony was saying. Problem with names, problem with versions, and so on and so forth. And so we have plenty of tools to produce SBOMs. We have some tools that will import SBOMs. Some will allow you to apply rules to know if it's okay to use that license or if it's not okay. But from what we've seen before Hermine, it was very basic, right? So the first time I was introduced to Hermine, I just thought, wow, at least that's a tool that will allow us to apply the actual open source policy from the group, not just a bunch of rules that only geeks can edit in a text file. So I'm talking about open source ecosystem, right? Excluding maybe some proprietary software that do that. So that's the whole point, try to embrace the complete complexity of open source compliance. Over to you.
Thanks. So the different goals that we have, I mean, the first one was to ease the application of applying your open source compliance policy for different type of organization and also for different type of users. That would imply to have different interfaces, graphical interfaces for a kind of population, and of course an API to interface with your actual systems. So the goal of Hermine from a functional point of view is to answer two main questions. The first is that when you get your result of your SBOM, you've got a list of components, and for each of these, you want to know, I mean, can I use this in my project? And the second stage is that, okay, I have validated this component in my project, but then what concrete action should I take to be compliant with the license of this product, given the specific context of its usage? So the global spirit of the tool was to be both efficient and pragmatic, and at the same time limiting the legal uncertainty, I mean the legal risks that you take, given that you must still have the control of the level of risk that you are ready to accept. And so that means also providing a database of license analysis and to be able to share it, because the more you share your interpretations, the lower the legal risk will be. But even if you have shared data, you will still get the full control of what is acceptable in your own company. So, concretely. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So a few words. So it's not going to be technical, but so just a few words to see what's to understand the whole goal of the thing. This slide tries to summarize what we feed the system, the machine, and then we'll see what we get out of it. So just to understand the complexity of the open source compliance at the company level, we have to somehow tell the machine what the policy is. So the policy is what kind of, which license do I authorize in which context? Depending, we'll see later a bit more details. On the product level, you have to give as an input the SBOM. So we don't produce SBOMs, right? We rely on SPDX and ORT reports and someday CycloneDX, most probably. And you have to tell, okay, that product is used in this or this way. It's SAS, it's an embedded system, it's a mobile application, it's front-end, back-end, or whatever. That makes a difference when you look at how your license is triggered and how the obligation is triggered. On the dependency level, we also have to tell, we can tell how this each component is distributed. If it's a test dependency, then it's used only for tests, obviously. If it's development, well, it's distributed all the way. Did we modify that dependency and how it's linked to the main program? So that's a summary of all the information we have to give as an input to Hermine. And then the machine works. And as an output, we get two things, as we said before. On one hand, can I use that component? Is it okay? Is the license compatible with my policy in that context, if I distribute it this way? And the second thing is the list of all the obligations I have to fulfill to be compliant. Right, so you might be obliged to credits, and that's usually what we do. Credits all the offers, all the copyrights, but you also have to sometimes make accessible source codes. You might have to do plenty of things, but you don't want to do more than what you have to. Sometimes it's easier to just do it rather than try to say, okay, I have to credit this one, but not this one. I will credit this one and not this one. So all this complexity is inside Hermine. Right, so that's the same thing, but with a diagram, because some people like diagrams. On one hand, you have the magic SBOM, and you feed the project context and your first policy, and then you get the holy grail, the validation. Is it okay or not? And on the other hand, we are able to, so we didn't talk about this yet, but we have a, well, yes, Camille said that we break down the licenses into obligations. So this is like a lot of work. And that's the right-hand part. You match this with your SBOM, and you get, as an output, all the obligations that you have to fulfill. OK. So just a few words about the project itself, the organization. So we were like 6 companies starting this. Inno³, presented by Camille, was at the origin of the project. We organized around 3 committees, distinct committees, a bit like SPDX is doing, with a legal committee, a technical, and a steering committee. And so all the source code is the federal license, database is ODBL. So, well, it's not a technical presentation, but quite important to know it's all written in Python. We're using the Django framework. We use the REST API, the DRF REST API, the database agnostic. Of course, PostgreSQL is always preferred. And you can have a look at the source code, and we have a dedicated website with documentation. Over to you.
Okay, so concretely, that's what we are now. So we have a framework to analyze context. To analyze licenses in your different contexts. We are able to import a specific format of ORT. ORT, that's OSS Review Toolkit, which is a very great tool to produce SBOMs. We also import so SPDX format at the moment. We have role management in the applications because you have different profile of users. We have 5-step validation for your incoming S-bounds, because as was mentioned in the previous presentation by Anthony, sometimes you have problem with the quality of metadata, or you have to make choices and you don't want to repeat yourself, so you have to store both this curation and your choices. Then, as we are mentioning, you've got all the resulting obligation for a specific release, and also side effect is that you have a full catalog of your product and linked components. Typically, if you want to know where is a given version of log4j in your across all your products, you can have the answer instantly. And so what we are working on at the moment is to share data. So we're starting with sharing license analysis, but we'll also working on sharing curations that was mentioned earlier. We have a good level of deployment automation. I mean, basically, if you can use Docker, that's quite easy. But we are still trying to make it better. We are also trying to improve the global UX and UI. Of course, we are working on the documentation, which is a bit lacking behind, and we are globally, I mean, making the product more robust. That's what we are working on at the moment. And so, of course, we are very open. So if you want any information or if you want to join the project, you can come and talk to us.